And so in 2025, I think it's going to be a huge part of my message that if we're going to build an unbreakable body, we have to build an unbreakable mindset and pivot from worshiping our youth to looking ahead to the best years of our lives.
Welcome back to the show. This is a special, wonderful, amazing episode. I am so excited to start 2025's interviews with this one. This one is all about health. Now, we did a health series in fall, but scheduling didn't work out. So now we're going to start the year with this episode, this one most important health episode, more important than all the other episodes that I did in fall, with Dr. Vonda Wright. Getting her on my show is kind of like an Oprah moment for me. I wouldn't be more excited if Oprah was coming on my podcast. Like, this is how excited I am to have this woman on. She is an orthopedic surgeon. She's an author. She's a speaker. She's a longevity expert. She talks about longevity and women's health and performance. She's just amazing. I have been learning from her for the past year, and her wisdom and her expertise and her insights and the data that she brings really to Instagram every day, as well as, of course, papers she's published, and she is a practicing physician now. But for me, it has changed my health, and I think changed the quality of my life and the longevity of my life that I'm going to have. So Dr. Vonda Wright is our guest, and I am so excited that you are included in this conversation now. Okay, let's dive in with my new friend and health hero, Dr. Vonda Wright. Vonda, I am so excited to have you on my show. Some people would be excited and say, I've had a show for 6 years. I'm so excited Oprah's coming on. Not for me. I'm excited Vonda's coming on.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for that. I might be excited if Oprah was coming on.
I could not learn as much from Oprah as I can from you. I discovered your work last year. You, of course, have been teaching and sharing and helping women for over 20 years. I discovered you last year, and really my health has completely changed since I discovered you. So I want to thank you. I know from you coming on this show, it'll be an introduction to so many tens of thousands of women who I hope at this time next year can say, I'm a completely different person health-wise because of her work.
Well, thank you. It's an honor. And how humbling for you to say that. But it's why I get up in the morning, right? I mean, orthopedics is one thing, but changing lives is a wholly different motivation. So,
well, okay. I'm thrilled to start out. I want to start with what you call the critical decade, because I think most of my listeners are in that critical decade. Tell us what it is and what we need to know.
Well, I think that sometimes the first time we think about our health is when we have a birthday so big that we're either burning down the kitchen with our candles or somebody from Hallmark sends us a big bouquet of black balloons or some abysmal. And we're thinking, oh my gosh, really, I've gotten to that point. But midlife is not the first time, or your 50th birthday is not the first time we should be thinking about our health. In fact, I would like people, and all my children are at this age, so I'm speaking to them, around 35 to 45, or 40 at the latest, which I call the beginning of the critical decade, when it's time to get your proverbial health expletive together, right? I would swear to your people, but they don't know me yet. But, it's time to get it together, people. It's time to adult, because here's what happens. We get through college, we start our careers, maybe we start our long-term relationships, maybe then we start taking care of little people, and we are coasting on the youth that we have. But we know that there are profound changes starting in our mid-30s, definitely by 40, in the way that our cells work, the way our hormones work. Our aging progresses that we need to pay attention to. And while we still have hormones, while we still have some of our youthful vigor, we need to get in front of it, because what happens is if we wait till the end of our health span, which is 64, to finally look up and say, oh, it's time to think about my health, it's so much harder. So the critical decade, listeners, 35 to 45, it's time to start thinking about your body. It's time to get a physical if you've never, get some baseline labs if you've never done it.
Are people not getting physicals out there?
No, nobody gets a physical. When I say to people, do you have any, I'm taking a health history. Do you have any health problems? And I go through, they're like, no, I don't have any health problems. And then I ask the follow-up question, is that because you've never been to a doctor? Yes, because you know what? It's easy and more convenient to go to emergent care. I'm sorry, emergent care people. I'm not, it's the pop-up, right? That is not your doctor. That is to make sure you're not dying, right? So get a doctor, get some labs, get your first mammogram, get your first DEXA scan, pay for it if you have to. And then it's time to start building some muscle and bone and brain while you still have youth on your side, so that when you get to midlife, it's not so hard.
Amen to that. I was inspired right when I turned 47. My grandfather had just passed away. He was twice my age, and he felt great until a few weeks before he passed away. And I thought, if I want to live to double the life I am now and actually feel good, I have to stop, as you say, coasting on my youth. And that's what I had been doing all these years. And it took over a year to get to where I wanted to be. I started hormone replacement therapy right at the beginning, thank goodness. As soon as I started waking up at 3 a.m. and I had 2 hot flashes, I was like, oh, this is what everyone's talking about. This is unacceptable. And it was your Instagram post where you were promoting the book Estrogen Matters that made me get that book and start researching it. But the hardest thing for me has been lifting weights and not hurting myself. So I'm a year into lifting weights. Now, I've heard you say walking isn't enough, right? Walking's not
fine. Walking is 80%, but then we have to then really challenge ourselves and sprint. But
oh my gosh.
I'll define sprinting. I don't want people to think I'm asking you to be Usain Bolt. Sprinting means just getting your heart rate up to the very top realms, because that is what will affect our longevity and our cardiovascular health. So
say you're doing a 30-minute walk.
Okay.
How much of that needs to be sprinting?
How about a 45-minute walk?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when I prescribe aerobic work, I like people to work on an 80-20 mixture. 80% of the time, we are brisk walking in a lower heart rate range. We want to get really metabolic and technical. It's our fat max. We're not yet burning carbohydrates. So it's, for me, that heart rate, depending on how shaped we are, is 130, where we're really metabolically efficient. We're not producing a lot of lactic acid, which is a brisk walk for most of us, 45 minutes at a time. 30 is better than nothing, but I'd rather you do it for 45. Do that for 3-ish hours a week. The other 20% of the time, preferably after you've taken your walk, we need to really jack our heart rate up to as high as it can go, or as high as your doctor says you should go. Mine gets up to 186. And so the way I do this is, after I'm done with my brisk walk, I happen to do it on a treadmill. You could do it on a rower, on an elliptical, on a bike. You can do any effort, the road. I then go as fast as I can for 30 seconds. So I go from 130, I punch the treadmill up to 11, and I go as fast as I can because I'm pretty short and I don't want to fall off the back, right? And then 30 seconds, and then I punch it down all the way to like 2.8 or something, and I completely recover my heart rate. And so I do that 4 times. What that does, that sprinting, that serves as an anabolic stimulus that you used to get from estrogen. That is great for your metabolism. It's great for your stem cells. It's great for your heart. That, coupled with heavy lifting, is what recomposes our bodies. Because in midlife, I never tell people to lose weight. I always frame it as recomposing, because we're trying to build muscle and exchange that for adipose. We're not trying to lose weight, during which we lose 50% of our muscle and 50% fat. That's not what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I have a lot of, I used keto to lose weight, and a lot of people use different things, but it's the muscle loss that's so scary about getting our composition of our body in better order, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about bone health. I was telling you before we recorded, I had a DEXA scan this morning to see how my bones were doing. The reason I did it is I used to drink tons of soda. I was on PPIs for 6 years. So I want to see what's going on in my bones. What can I do? My question to you is, exercise-wise, what do we need to be doing to help our bones? What should we avoid? And how bad is a Coke Zero for our bones?
Oh, I love Coke Zero, Allie.
I do too.
I love Coke Zero. Okay, so let's start with the first question. What should we be doing in terms of exercise for our bones, right?
Yeah.
Number one, you don't have to do anything different. Lift heavy weights, not mamby-pamby pink weights, heavy weights to build muscle, which will then pull on our bones, cause our bones to continue to remodel. Our bones are very sensitive to mechanical stimulus, and good muscles will pull on bones. So that's number one. Number two, I need everybody to do a jumping practice. 20 jumps a day or 10 minutes. Other people say 10 minutes 3 times a week. And I'm not really just talking about light, soft landing jumping. I am talking about stomping your feet on the ground, because it's the biomechanical energy will be translated into biochemical signals for your bone to say, oh my God, we're under a lot of strategic stress. Let's build ourselves, right? Now, what happens? I say this all the time, and I'm always getting the same question. If you jump around, bash your bones, what if my knees hurt? What if I've already got osteoporosis in my low spine? Well, how about doing what the astronauts do, which is doing it on a rebounder, which is a mini tramp. When astronauts come back from space, NASA puts them on rebounders and then graduates them to terra firma. But there is some good research on that. And I was a little skeptical at first, but there is research behind using a mini tramp for your impact, but you have to do it.
Okay. A little mini trampoline is enough impact for our bones?
Well, it's better than nothing.
Okay.
I'd rather you be jumping up and down on the hard ground, or jump roping or jumping jack, right?
Yeah.
But if you're just in too much pain, I'll take some mini tramp work over nothing.
Okay, I like that. Okay. Now, what do we need to always avoid? And then the Coke Zero.
High doses of alcohol, smoking of any kind, including vaping. Sorry, people, it's not a good substitute. It still kills your bones. Smoking, vaping, we need to avoid lots of alcohol, lots of steroids if you have an illness that you have to take in kind of in a tough place. But we shouldn't just be taking prednisone for no reason. Avoid sedentary living, which we can totally reverse sedentary living. It's something that's a permanent problem. But those are, and you know what? Bones are made out of protein. We need to eat enough protein in our lives. We got to feed ourselves. We can't just starve ourselves all the time and expect to perform at the level that we want to.
Yeah, it is definitely a trend, which is one reason why so many people are paying attention to you and listening to every word you say. It's definitely a trend for women in midlife who care about their health to get together and talk protein. I take clients on trips. Oh, yeah. I take clients on trips twice a year, and we joke that the whole trip is a talk about protein in our supplement stack. Like that's what we're doing in the off time.
Oh my gosh, it's so much better conversation than about, no, I have nothing against Botox, but then always just talking about Botox, right? Oh, good.
Oh no, our joke on the last trip was the woman with the best supplement stack. One woman brought a pound of her favorite mushroom coffee, and she's like, I'm giving it to whoever has the best stack. Like that was our trip.
That's I love that.
Okay, now Coke Zero.
Okay, so we've solved the problem of sugar with Coke Zero, right?
Yes.
We've solved it, because I'm going to tell you, no sugar, people. But the problem with sodas and carbonation is the phosphoric acid. Mm-hmm. That then is not great for our bones. So this is the way I justify it, because I've never admitted this online before. I may have one of those little mini size Coke Zeros every day or so. But remember, I don't eat sugar. Mm-hmm. I do the work, right? So I'm thinking, okay, so do I eat something really terrible for me, or do I get a sweet taste? So I do. True confessions. But that's what's up with Coke Zero. It's not the artificial sweetener that I'm offended by or your bones will be offended by. It is the phosphoric acid. So I would not make it your primary drink, and I would not buy the whole can. I would buy those little bitty things if you must and use it as your treat because God, we've got to live a little, right? Because if we're all about deprivation, that's all we think about, right? It's all we think about.
When you've given up sugar, you need a little sweet treat every once in a while. Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
So I have heard you talk about just how dangerous a fracture is for women, and as we get over 50, how a fracture can really take us out. And I learned from you the importance of agility work and footwork. So I'm out in my driveway doing footwork all the time. Will you explain to everyone in this audience why it matters and what we need to be doing?
So let's talk about some of the scary statistics. Can we do that?
Please.
So people think that bones are just the strong, silent type. They're just holding up your muscles, and they are. I mean, without bones, your muscles are just a quivering mass of metabolic tissue, kind of gross looking. It's only because the bones stretch them out that you get this physique, right? So bones are the strong, silent type. They're also extremely metabolically active. They produce hormones. They're master communicators. They're fascinating. And why wouldn't we be designed this way? We have bones from the top of our head to the bottom of our little toes. Why wouldn't we use them for communication? It wouldn't make sense. But here's what we know is that when estrogen walks out the door, around 40, estrogen starts to leave because we only have 1% of our eggs left, and it's just not enough to keep up with our estrogen needs. Estrogen is a master controller of bone breakdown. Because there's a cell that breaks down bone. I always do this with my hands. A cell that breaks down bone. I'm going to show you.
Do, yeah.
This is an osteoclast that breaks down bone. It sits there
adorable.
And it pushes up bones to release all the minerals that your body needs. Our bones are a storehouse. Along comes on the other side an osteoblast that builds bone. The osteoclast is a little crazy person. It needs to be controlled, so it's not all... So estrogen does that. So after we lose our estrogen, it's not that we can't keep building bone. It's that there's an imbalance and we're breaking down more than we're building. So what happens? Well, it leads to weak bones, 1 in 2 women, 1 in 2. So it's me or you, or it's you or your girlfriend. 1 in 2 women, 50% of us will have an osteoporotic fracture in our lifetime. Whether you fall and break your hand, the wrist is a very common place. The ankle is a very common place. The femur is a common place. And here's what happens. If a woman falls and breaks her femur, which 70% of the time femoral fractures are in women, 50% of the time you will not return to pre-fall function. You will not go back to the house where you raised your family. And 30% of the time you will die. And I do not say those horrifying statistics as fear-mongering, as sometimes I'm accused of. Those are the stats, Jack. I'm not making that up. There is no question. So those are the statistics on fracture. Here's the deal. We can rebuild bone. We can prevent fracture. And here's how we do it. Number 1, make your hormone replacement decision. You got to make that decision based on facts, not fear, as you have done with Estrogen Matters, right? Number 1. Number 2, we must build better bone. We've already talked about a jumping practice. We've already talked about building muscle to build better bone. And then we must not fall. Because listen, you can walk around in your frail bone state. Many people do. And we are one fall away from devastation. I have story after story after story. One recently, a nurse told me she works in the ICU. This woman was 89. She was the community driver for her 60, 70-year-old girlfriend. She's the one that's still driving at 89, driving them all around. But she was frail and she fell. She broke 4 ribs. She broke her femur. And there was nothing that could be done. And her son made her do not resuscitate because she was
Mm.
so we're one fracture. I don't mean that was a horrible story, but we're one fracture away from devastation. So how do we not fall, right? Let's make our home safer. Let's pull up all the beautiful little rugs in front of our doors, or let's pin them down so we don't trip over them. Let's make sure our little bitty dogs don't run under our feet. And these are all true stories, Allie. Our little
Oh,
bitty
yeah.
dogs don't run under, or let's make sure that if we're frail, we don't hold on to the leash of our 150-pound German Shepherd, who's then going to dart off after a squirrel and pull us down. Let's not do that. But let's also work on our agility. What does that mean? Balance and agility. Balance is to be able to catch ourselves when we're falling. Agility is the foot speed to step over something if we start to fall. Both of those degrade with time. Both of those can be totally retrained. So to retrain our balance, let's stand on one foot while we're brushing our teeth. Because this kind of motion will make us lose our balance, but we're right there in a safe place. Grab the sink if you're starting to fall over. You can totally retrain your balance. Number 2, foot speed. I had posted on these. These are just little, like sitting in a chair and pogo sticking your feet, doing some agility drills. Because here's a true story. I rush into work. I set my big black work bag down on the edge of my desk. And then a patient's coming in, and without thinking, I'll get up fast. And as I'm turning the corner, my foot will catch on this giant black work bag. Well, because I train my agility, I can just hop over it and keep going. But if we haven't gotten our foot speed back, we'll fall flat on our faces and break something. So that was such a long answer for how we're going to avoid falling, because that's really critical.
Well, that was a great answer. It's great to have the whole picture of why it matters. So, we need to get out in our driveways or at the gym or at the park or whatever it is and make sure that we can actually move. My physical therapist put me on a routine for agility. He said, if you want to play pickleball, I need you to do footwork for a month before. And I was like, I was a great tennis player. That's not a problem. He said, how long ago? I said, 30 years. He said, absolutely not. You will go out and play pickleball and you will pop your Achilles, because people come in here every week from that. And it's because we haven't done anything with our feet in all that time.
It's true. And I love pickleball, but I got to tell you, these pickleballers, you can't go out and just play for 45 minutes or an hour. People are like, I was out there for 4 hours. It's never enough for you people.
Oh, it's so great. When I was talking to some of my girlfriends about having you on, one thing that I heard from them quite a bit is, can you ask her what to do about low back pain? I want to lift weights. I want to get more active, but my lower back always hurts.
When I wrote that paper on the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause, which is
Mhm.
all the things that happen when estrogen walks out the door, I didn't put in low back pain, and I sure should have, because what happens, our back, just as a little background, our spinal column are these blocks of bone sitting like this. Well, the bone is not sitting on each other. They're sitting on these little pads. They're like donut pads called vertebral discs. Well, just like everything else, when we lose our estrogen, they dry out so that there's not as much shock absorption. So we can get low back pain just due to the compression of our little discs. We can also, another reason to make a hormone decision, we can also get low back pain because our vertebral discs themselves are getting weaker. But
Mhm.
the third reason we get low back pain is because we are weaker. We sit in chairs all day. It weakens our core. It weakens our paraspinal muscles. It weakens our butt. So to get in front of that and get rid of low back pain, we need to build a better butt, core, and hips and really invest in those big muscle groups, as well as stretching out our hamstrings, right? When we sit in a place, hamstrings, which attach to the bone we sit on and
Mhm.
below our knee, they get shorter. And in doing so, they tilt our pelvis and make us walk kind of with a sway back, which propels us in a non ergonomic way. So I think it's surprising that the answer I've given is you got to get a strong butt, core, and hips if you want to get rid of low back pain.
And I think when people have low back pain, they're afraid to do any strength exercises because it hurts. And so there's this question of, do I push through how much it hurts to get stronger? Because I don't seem to ever feel better to get started.
Well, I think it's never a wrong answer to go and work with a physical therapist so that you can not only gain physical confidence, but mental confidence that the very next step, you're not going to hurt yourself. Right.
Right. Yeah.
The other thing I think it's important to realize is that if you've been sitting around for any amount of time, 20 years, 30 years, 2 days, not quite 2 days, but for any period of time, it's going to take some time to get back. We just can't rebound back. And I mean, you just said it about pickleball. It's going to take some time. I get women who are very frustrated that it's taking longer than 3 months to get back in shape. And I said, well, listen, how long have we been out of shape? Right? It's, do you remember, you might be too young. Do you remember Richard Simmons?
Of course.
Yeah, the exercise guru. He used to shout from every stage. He's like, you grew it, you lose it. I mean, it's the same concept. We have been out of shape for a long time. Give yourself some grace that for you to get back in shape, it's going to take a minute.
Absolutely. With your background of being this expert and leader for decades, is there anything that surprises you that all of a sudden it seems like in the culture people have just perked up and paid attention to?
I think we can say that about the perimenopause and menopause discussion. I started talking about perimenopause and menopause and right about the pandemic in 2019, 2020. And that's actually when some of the leaders in the menopause movement also started to perk up, maybe because we had more time, we weren't in our offices or something. I'm not surprised, but I'm very happy that the culture has started to realize that women have 40 years or more of life left after our reproductive years, right? And our mother's generation just never talked about it, unfortunately. And I'm talking about it not only for myself, but honestly, I have 2 daughters of my own and 3 daughters-in-law who I'm not going to lie to them to say that they can be anything they want in life from a career standpoint. But to do that, they have to feel good. And so they then have to take care of. I'm hoping for them that they are so prepared for perimenopause. They're like, of course I've made my hormone decision. Of course I know where to get hormones. Of course I know I have to build muscle now in the critical decade. It's almost, I hope for them it's a non-conversation.
Absolutely. So if someone's listening and she's lived under a rock and hasn't been exposed to any information about perimenopause in the past year, but she's nervous because she's heard the outdated information from the Women's Health Study. And my original primary care physician said, absolutely not. You don't want hormone replacement therapy. It's so unsafe. And I realized that was the training when he went through medical school and he just never was retrained. What would you say to women? What do they need to know about aging and what the lack of estrogen can do to our bodies?
Well, number one, they need to know that aging is not an inevitable decline from vitality to frailty. It is not. It can be if we do not, you're like an old car. If you don't maintain your car, it's not going to run anymore, right? So it's not an inevitable decline. We can be healthy, vital, active, joyful, but it takes purpose and it takes investment of time, number one. Number two, I want women to realize that they are worth that investment. We take care of everybody else in our lives. We've talked about our children on this podcast. We take care of everybody. We are worth taking care of. That's number two. But as women, and you know what, you would be surprised how many women I get in my office who have never heard of perimenopause, because I'll say to them, I'm an orthopod, but we're talking about their bones or their shoulder. And I'll say, but have you ever heard of perimenopause? You're in perimenopause right now, as they're talking about all their muscular. Many women still have not heard. So we have a lot of work to do still. But for those who have heard, and I will say that, or women will say to me, I'm in perimenopause. I hurt so much. And I said, have you made your hormone replacement decision? And some of them are so quick to say, oh my God, no, my Aunt Minnie had breast cancer and I'm never going to do that, right? That is a very common response due to the travesty of health that was put upon 2 generations of women by a study that was published in 2002 called the Women's Health Initiative. That study was meant to look at cardiovascular disease as it relates to hormone treatment. It was never designed to look at breast cancer risk. And yet out of that study, the statistics do not hold what was reported, which was reported in a press conference that estrogen replacement causes breast cancer. That data, interpreted in its original form, here's the data. Without estrogen, the women in that study had a 3 in 1,000 chance of being diagnosed with breast cancer. 3 in 1,000. Diagnosis, not death, diagnosis, 3 in 1,000. The women who had estrogen in that study had a 3.8 in 1,000. So less than 1 in 1,000 women diagnosis, no increase in death. Now, I am not making light of the fact that 1 in 1,000 is still 1 in 1,000. I was a cancer nurse. I do not take breast cancer lightly at all. But what I am saying is to take away something that I believe is the elixir of longevity for women, and I'll tell you why, due to an increased risk of 1.8 in 1,000 is not okay. And the fact that in a recent book, the author interviewed the primary investigator of that study, Dr. Rousseau, about interpretation of his data and asked point blank whether he believed that the data showed. He says, the data doesn't show it, but I just feel it in my heart. Well, I'm sorry, Dr. Rousseau, you have contributed to the suffering of millions of women doing to a feeling you had, and it's not right. Baby booming women did not have the benefit of estrogen. They're all in their mid-60s right now, which is a harder decision. Generation Xers like me are coming to the world. I wish I would have known before. I started hormones when I was 52. I wish I would have started when I was 47, right? I would. That's when I entered perimenopause. I wish I had known. Better late than never. I mean, I'm not actually late, but I wouldn't have suffered for 5 years.
Yeah.
Right. And I want the millennial women to make the decision even before they go into perimenopause so that there's no transition to losing 20% of their bone density. Without estrogen in the first 5 years, you can lose 15 to 20% of your bone density, your muscle mass. You have increased cardiovascular disease. You can have changes in your brain due to the fact that our brain is inhabited by estrogen receptors, as documented by Lisa Mosconi, who's a PhD researcher in New York. So the reason I call estrogen the elixir of longevity, if I stay in my lane, which I seldom do, if I stay in my lane and say, okay, you guys argue about heart disease, you quibble about brain, the effects of estrogen on the brain, you do that, all you arguing people. There is no argument that I could save people from 50% of the women population having osteoporosis if we got in front of this and prevent death by building better bone. You guys argue. There is no argument in my brain. I mean, in my lane. And so I'll say 50% of people. I'll do that. You guys argue about it yourself. I get pretty passionate about it because I'm a little tired of all the quibbling, honestly.
Well, you have the data as opposed to someone saying, I just believe it in my heart. I believe it in my heart that this isn't good. And we've had a generation of women suffering. We've lost so many of our mothers. To lack of estrogen.
Excruciating when they break. Why should women suffer like that? Do you know what, Allie, that makes me really sad when women have it? Every clinic this happens. Women will come in. I just had one. I was in clinic yesterday. Today's Friday. I have clinic on Thursdays. A woman came in And this is what she says. She'll say, I heard her telling my athletic assistant, she says, you know what? I came back in because I have a really high pain tolerance and I just can't do this anymore. I have got to get some sleep. That is what women say to me every single day. And I say back to society, why are we okay with women knowing that they have such a high pain tolerance? There is no badge of honor that I am a level 10 pain tolerator. There is no, why do we think that's okay? It's just a sad commentary on what we expect from women.
Well, men had one health issue, and Viagra's everywhere. Women aren't sleeping. We're losing our bone density. We've lost the collagen in our face. We're getting outrageous rates of dementia. And everyone goes, you can just suffer, balance your hormones naturally. Good luck. And the days of that are over.
The days of that are over. And, if I live long enough, we're going to stop portraying longevity or living longer for men as longevity with, and I love these guys. It's not these guys. When George Clooney turned 60, he and Brad Pitt went off to the south of France for this gorgeous photo shoot. Look, 60 is vibrant and handsome and whatever. So they get to have living longer as longevity. And that's certainly what it's like in the bro culture that's going on in podcasts. But for women, living longer is anti-aging. Why can't living longer be healthy, vital, active, joyful, and not anti-aging? And this is 2025. I'm coming out hot because I'm not going to tolerate it anymore. I live as an orthopedic sports surgeon. I live in a bro culture, and I know what men get. I know their attitudes towards aging. I know that they're trading in all their youthful marriages for what's next. I mean, women deserve to have longevity discussed in the way of vibrance, the way men do. I didn't think I'd go down that road. See what you've done?
I like it. I like it. You come in hot anytime on this show. This is wonderful. Are there any other bits that we've missed that you're passionate about right now?
In 2025, I think people will see me talking a lot about how we pivot our mindset and build an unbreakable future. Because for us to be healthy, vital, active, joyful, for us to believe that we are worth the daily investment in our health that I think women are worth, to pivot the conversation from anti-aging to true longevity, women need to stop being their own worst enemy. Women need to stop contributing to the patriarchy and build an unbreakable future. Women raise all the boys in this country. We are their mothers. We get to teach them what it's like to age unbreakable, to age strong, to live a vibrant, healthy, long-lasting life, right? We sit in the power seat with our sons, right? Number one. Number two, I think we need to stop, and I always look over my left shoulder. Can we please stop worshiping what it was like to be 25?
Amen.
I mean, I was 25 once. I looked 25. 25 was easy physically. It wasn't that great mentally, financially. I still had decades of education to go. I was not in control of my time, my money, So now I may have few more candles on my birthday cake, fewer years left on this earth, but pivoting our mindset that these can be the best years of our life and we're going to live them unapologetically to harness the wisdom of our age and say, you know what? 25 was great, but I would never go back.
Amen.
And pivot. And so I think there are many cultures that revere aging and longevity. And how about we pivot our mindset? And so in 2025, I think it's going to be a huge part of my message that if we're going to build an unbreakable body, we have to build an unbreakable mindset and pivot from worshiping our youth to looking ahead to the best years of our lives.
That's wonderful. I'm excited for this.
Mm.
I'm really excited for this. This is great. Like I said, your leadership, your expertise, your generosity with your wisdom has completely changed my life health-wise in the past year. So I'm excited for what you're going to do in the next year. Are you ready for some fun questions?
Yes, I'll do the best I can.
Okay. What about a song that you have on repeat lately?
Spotify just told me what song I played over and over. I was a little bit surprised about it. Some 70s rock song. But you know what band I really love right now? I'll answer it like this. I love Little Big Town.
Oh,
Have you
yeah.
heard of them? They're
I have.
I just love those women. So I'm really into Little Big Town right now, and they have a Christmas album that I am currently playing on repeat every day.
I love it. I do need to know what was that 70s song that was on repeat on Spotify.
Look, it was something like "I Will Survive" or something.
That would be perfect.
Why was I listening to that so often that Spotify puts it on my list? Isn't that funny? The biggest artist I listened to all year, and it had nothing to do with me. It was me trying to identify with my 17-year-old was Lana Del Rey. The most hours logged was with Lana Del Rey.
My kids mess up my Spotify every year because they're listening to it. I'm trying to be cool and connect with my kids. My Spotify is a mess until those kids are out of the house. That's great. What about a TV show or a movie that you've enjoyed?
So, believe it or not, the TV show that my husband and I use as together time has been that soccer show on Netflix called Wrexham. It's about it's about the soccer club in England that has now risen several. So anyway, we use it. It's like a human interest story.
I love that. And of course, it's sports related.
Of course.
How could it not be? What about a book that you've read recently?
Well, I've read Estrogen Matters. I think every living woman should get their data from Estrogen Matters. The book that I completed I just love books. My whole office where I'm sitting in, every day a book comes from Amazon. I read Blind Spot by Mark Mackay. He's a physician. It's about, first, how research data can sometimes lead us down a path. So that was when I completed, but this one just came in the mail. I haven't even read it yet. It's The 4-Hour Body by Tim Ferriss.
I love that book. I've read it many times. It's amazing.
Is it? Okay.
Anything from Tim Ferriss is amazing, but that's amazing.
I don't even understand how he works 4 hours a week. It's a very different business than I do, where I treat actual people. Yes. But I'm a little intimidated by how thick this is.
Well, you flip through it. You pick and choose. Yeah.
So that arrived in the mail this week, so we'll get to that.
That's an excellent choice. Okay, I love that one. What about a product that you enjoyed so much you told a friend she had to have it?
I love this K-Beauty product line called Riman, Riman. It's just a beautiful series of skin steps that I use, not only because it's great product, but it's because it's kind of a ritual of slowing down at the end of the day. I think ritual has a place in people's lives. So there's this Riman series of skin products that I like.
I love that. Okay, last question. What are you excited about?
I am excited about the future for women in this country. I am excited for the future of families in this country as women stay healthier longer and really take control of their health. And I am specifically excited today. I don't know when this is going to be produced, but on this day, we are recording. My daughter-in-law is having our first granddaughter.
Oh my goodness. Congratulations.
We already have a grandson who's just a joy and delight to the whole family, but now we'll have a little girl. And so we just keep growing.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you for making the time. That's amazing.
You're welcome.
And I will tell you, last thing, as a woman raising 5 sons, many of them have been raised, there are lots of discussions of hormone replacement therapy and estrogen and why it matters in perimenopause, because I want the boys to understand science for women and health for women, because they're going to be great husbands one day, supporting
Oh,
their
you're a good
wives.
leader to teach them. Thank you for doing that.
I'm trying. Well, again, thank you for your leadership. I'm excited for what you do in 2025. And thank you for coming on the show. Tell everyone where to find you.
I just want everybody to congregate on Instagram. Let's just meet there together, and then you can find my other places from Instagram.
That sounds great. Thanks again.
Bye-bye now.
How great was she, right? I just want to learn from her all the time. She makes me want to practice my footwork. She makes me want to lift heavier weights. And do I need to get a rebounder? Maybe I do. Maybe. I'm so glad you're here. As always, I am grateful for the investment that you made in yourself today. So, yes, we are focusing on our emotional health soon. We are still talking about our physical health, our personal growth, our success in life with our career and our work. It doesn't just benefit you, it benefits your family and your relationships and your community. I believe in the gifts that God has placed inside of you. I believe in your dreams, and I know you're making an impact on this world for good. That is why you're here every week, hopefully twice a week, learning and growing and building a healthier, stronger, and more joyful life, just one little step at a time. What I know to be true is that God has uniquely created you to stand strong and bring something special and unique to this world that only you can bring. I want to remind you today that you're stronger than you think, you're smarter than you give yourself credit for, and you're braver than you feel in the hard moments. And the best part is you're just getting started. We've got a long and wonderful life and journey ahead of us. Amen. You are capable of incredible things because the Spirit of God lives in you. The dreams in your heart aren't there by accident. God placed them there, and He's giving you everything you need to live them out. It is my joy to get to bring great information to you, to get to coach you, to cheer you on, and remind you that with God, you have what it takes. So keep stepping up, keep showing up, and keep loving well, because you know the truth. You cannot break a woman who gets her strength from God. I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Sorry. Thought I was ready. I'm not ready. And no. This is great. This is what editing's for. I need to know. That's it. I'm so excited about this episode. It's going to be amazing. I love it.